So now that we've discussed how film actually got to be a thing, let's talk about the very first instances of film. The silent film and black and white film that occurred in the 19-teens upwards. So why was film in black and white? Well, that's because the actual film, the stuff you put into the camera to capture the image, was called orthochromatic film, and everything it took was in black and white. Colored film didn't come about until much later. Although it had been technically invented at this point, it wasn't used in actual filming for many decades later. Orthochromatic film is blue-green sensitive, meaning that anything in the world that is blue will be absorbed more by the actual film. When the camera with the film inside is looking at an image, say here, the blue of this wall will appear white because the film will absorb that color more. It'll burn more of the emulsion on the film, and it'll be a brighter color. Anything that was blue, green, and the cool tone spectrum would appear white or light. The opposite would happen for things that were red and warm tone. They would appear darker because the film wouldn't absorb the light that was being reflected off that. The issue comes that people, no matter what your skin tone is, it is a warm, unless you're dead, then you have gray or cool tone skin. So what happens if you film a person with an orthochromatic filming setup? Well, they're going to look gray or muddy. Any imperfection in their skin, any pimple, even freckles are going to appear black. Blue eyes were straight white, blonde hair was a weird yellow, gray thing because the warm tones of the blonde would show up. Red showed up as straight black. Fun fact, all those 1920s starlets were not painting their lips with dark colors or straight black. No matter how many vintage makeup companies want to sell you deep plum lipsticks and say it is 20 starlet, they usually had normal rosy red lips as per the fashion or nothing. And it just appeared black on the orthochromatic film. There wasn't much that anyone could really do to combat this. Not only was the camera system absorbent towards blue-gray light more, a lot of the lighting they were using back then was emitting blue light. These were called arc lights, also Klieg lights based on the company, and it was this weird fever dream teal it cast on everything, and it caused actors eye strain. You think about looking at your screen for days now and how we have glasses that are marketed to be blue light resistant, and yet we still get migraines. Imagine those people back then. So for a makeup crew looking at a film set, having to make sure that everything didn't go gray or green or black or just muddy, they had to really exercise their color theory chops. In order to get people looking on film with orthochromatic film correct, and not like they were drowned corpses or chimney sweeps, they had to do some very funky stage makeup in order to make everything look correct. And I could give you step-by-step instructions on how to do this and show you all the diagrams, but why don't I just do it myself and walk you through it?
Hello? Is this thing on? Alrighty then, let's begin the voiceover. So I found these steps on this source, and they detail how to do movie makeup from 1916. I just want to say that I'm not going to be doing all of these steps exactly, because with our lovely modern technology, I don't exactly need cold cream or burnt matchsticks and all these other quaint makeup techniques. So, to begin, make sure that you clean your skin thoroughly with cold cream. Don't forget your neck and ears. Apply grease paint in streaks to your entire face and blend carefully with your fingers so it's as even as possible. The camera picks up on all the imperfections. It needs to coat your skin all the way up to the hairline. Be sure to apply it to the backs of those ears. Add a light layer of yellow powder with a puff. Dust off the excess powder with a brush so that the skin appears smooth and matte. It's recommended that you repeat this 2 or 3 times. Just gonna pause for a second and say that I'm powdering last, which is a standard modern makeup technique, because doing that allows you to blend your cream paints and grease paints evenly before you apply powder, as doing grease paint over powder ends up very thick and chunky, and I'm just doing this because I have experience on theater makeup and stage makeup and even working at haunted houses. So I'm just doing this modern technique. It'll achieve the same effect visually. Like I said, I'm not following these 1916 steps exactly.
So after you powder, you have to do your eyebrows with black or brown liner. Brown is preferred since it looks more natural. Keep your eyes from looking like white holes, especially if they're light blue, by applying black, blue, or green eyeliner, darkest at your lash line, and lightening as you blend it outward.
While this step says black, blue, or green, in the chart that I'm referencing, it says lavender because the red in the lavender would appear a darker brown gray, and I am going off of that. Although if you do have green, you can do that. It'll look more of a cool-toned gray.
So after you've done putting eyeshadow on your eyes, use a lit match to heat up black eyeliner in a tiny pan and then line your eyes.
Or if you don't want to put a very hot piece of wood near your eyeballs, just use black eyeliner.
Do not bead your eyelashes,
says these instructions. By beading, they mean mascara. During close-ups, you would see all that chunkiness on your eyelashes. Mascara back then was not as clump-free as it is today.
If you're a woman, add some carmine to your lips.
Which is a type of rouge.
If you're a man, leave them bare. After that, it's time to fine-tune. If you have a dark tooth, paint it with white enamel.
By the way, tooth enamel is really awful even nowadays, and I hate to think what it was like back in 1916.
Facial imperfections can be minimized with putty.
Ew.
Or contoured using rouge and white liners, but proceed with caution, as this is expert territory. And after you've done strutting yourself in front of the camera, make sure to wash it all off with cold cream.
Regardless of the differences between the 1916 and modern methods of makeup, your face is gonna look like this. So if you were to walk onto a set in the 1920s, this is what the actors would look like. This is what it looks like on actual film. So all of the weird blues and yellows and the pastels would turn into this. The areas that are warmer in tone, like the yellow, the red, and the lavender eyelids, were turned into the darker gray contour, the black lips, and dark eyeshadow. So yeah, pastel nightmare. Just do the rest of the episode like this. I'm getting massive Victor Victoria vibes. I did a Victor Victoria once. So, how did we get to this? Well, before film was even a thing, there was theater. And way back in ye olden times, theater was lit by candlelight. So it was kind of dark and gloomy. That is, if they weren't already outside, like in the Globe, which used daylight. For those few theaters and the high society instances where they are actually indoors, they were lit by candlelight. So the actors needed to really punch up their features so that they can be seen. Usually they wore very pale base makeup and drew everything on in black so that they could actually be seen in the gloom from the very far away. You can also blame some of the stylized theater of the time, like Commedia dell'arte and things like that, some French theaters that really focused on mime for the very eccentric makeup. So leaving candlelight, we get into gaslight. And that introduced a problem that we still have today in theaters, that there's just too much damn light. It will wash you out in a second. You have your spots and your fills and your backlit scrims and all the effects, and there's so much light of so many different colors hit from all the angles, there is no contrast and no shadow. So stage makeup, even modern stage makeup, is very paint by numbersy. There's no blending because you wouldn't be able to see it from far away, and that would start to make your face look very muddy. It's a little war paintish. You put your base on, put your contour on, you put the red on your cheeks, you put the red on your lips, you paint blue across your eyelids so that people from the way far back in the mezzanine can see that you have blue eyes. That is how theater makeup even is today. So way back in the 19-teens, when film first started to become a thing, the actors were originally theatrical actors, and then went on to the movie set thinking, we know how to do makeup, so we've been doing it for however long, and we know that we can be seen from the very way back. However, orthochromatic film meant that the colors were all wonky, so you couldn't just go in with your normal stage makeup and your normal skin tones because you would look like you just walked out of a swamp and be all covered in gray, splotchy. So there's issue number one. Issue number two is the invention of the close-up, which meant that people are going to get really far in to your face and see all of that heavy grease paint and all your unblended lines, which was a
big thing. The close-up and the need for actors to look good when close up actually started typecasting. People would choose actors not based on their talents, but how good they looked on film. Not just really close up, are they pretty, but if an actor had freckles or age spots or sunspots or pimples, they wouldn't be chosen because those would show up black on film and make you look like you just murdered someone and are covered in flecks of blood. But also, the grease paint and makeup that would be required to cover that up would be visible in a close-up. So they actually started to choose actors who filmed well. Not acted well, filmed well. Thanks, Orthochromatic Film, for doing this to us. Because the makeup at this point was so much different than anything that theatrical actors had faced before, professional makeup artists started to be utilized. They had the added advantage of knowing how their colors would look on the orthochromatic film and how things would film under these gas lights and arc lights and Klieg lights and all the weird things. So they worked in close conjunction with the directors to be able to craft makeup that could be natural looking on film during those close-ups and still film well color-wise on the orthochromatic film. There were a few cases of people going with the heavy, non-natural, as much as this is natural, grease paint, and that is vaudevillian and slapstick actors, like Charlie Chaplin and the Marx Brothers. I mean, Groucho Marx just drew a big black rectangle thing above his lip to emulate the mustache. Walking on to a film set that used orthochromatic film would be walking onto a pastel nightmare where people were trying their best to look natural while still using heavy, weirdly colored grease paint. It wasn't until the invention of panchromatic film, and not so much the invention, but more the heavy usage of, that we actually get to see more normal makeup that isn't this. And the use of panchromatic film, as well as speech, which broke us out of the silent film era, and just the general upgrades that happened in camera technology, will be what we talk about next time.